My name is Kristen Merryman. I'm the Digital Projects and Outreach Manager for the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center, which is located physically in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, as we like to joke, the southern part of heaven. But we work with institutions all over the state of North Carolina. And so today I'm just going to give kind of a behind the scenes of who we are and what we do. And then I'm also going to take some time to kind of point out particular resources on our site that genealogists in particular like to utilize. So this is my agenda for today. I should talk for about 30 minutes, and that should leave us plenty of time for questions. So just who we are, how we work with our partners, an overview of, as we call it, our front porch, our digitalnc.org portal, and then some genealogy resource highlights, and then plenty of time for questions. So first, who is the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center? We started in 2010, so we've been around now for 15 years. This picture here is our lovely home, Wilson Library, which is located at UNC Chapel Hill, right kind of in the center of campus. We are the Special Collections Library on campus. And we have 9 full-time and part-time staff members. We have several graduate students who work for us doing a lot of our scanning. And then we have 4 full-time staff who make all this happen. We are a partnership between the State Library of North Carolina and UNC Chapel Hill, and we're funded through LSTA funds that are managed by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. But we physically live at Carolina, even though most of our funding is coming from the State Library, which is located in Raleigh, North Carolina. So when we were created, we kind of were created with the mandate that we would provide a centrally located place for digitization in the state of North Carolina. Before we came into existence, the State Library did this massive survey of the whole state, cultural heritage organizations, to figure out what resources they needed, what services they were needing. And digitization came up again and again and again. And again, this is like 2007, 2009. And so they decided, rather than just give every library a scanner and kind of had made them be on their own, they would kind of create a central place where institutions could bring materials that they wanted scanned, get them scanned by expert staff on nice equipment. And then that staff would also deal with all the metadata questions, all the description questions, and the access issues, which is a huge thing. So managing all those websites, content management systems, et cetera, that provide access to these materials. And so that's why we exist. So we now have 362 partner institutions across the state of North Carolina. Those institution types include public libraries, museums, historic societies, community colleges, universities, alumni associations, and more. Pretty much if you are a institution that holds historic materials and you're open to the public, we are happy to work with you in North Carolina. Everything we digitize has to be made freely accessible to the public online, and all of that can be found at digitaldnc.org. And we are constantly adding things. So since we started, we are scanning things in batches and putting them up online. And so if you are a user of our site and you are looking for stuff and we don't have it, always check back. We might have it in the future. So as I said, we have partners in all across the state, 362. In North Carolina, we have 100 counties, and we are proud to have a partner, at least one partner in every county across the state. We have a nice round number that let us aspire to hitting all 100 counties. But obviously some areas have a lot more institutions than others. So, Raleigh, the capital, Charlotte, which is a major metropolitan area, those type of areas have multiple partners compared to some counties where we just have one. But we have pretty good geographic spread across the state. And these days, our partners rely on us for several different kind of services. So scanning, obviously, and that's going to kind of be what I really talk about today. So that scanning and then that access on digitaldnc.org, that we maintain the website, we maintain the content management systems and keep everything up to date. We also do a lot of promotion of content through our social media channels. We also have some primary source set teaching materials on our website as well. And then we also do an awful lot of consulting with partners or organizations we haven't even worked with yet, who have questions about scanning, online access, just archival questions in general. Because we are out across the state and have so many partners, a lot of folks come to us first with questions that then we might divert somewhere else, depending on the content if we can't answer it. And so this is kind of our core service set. But how do our partners work with us? So once a partner, and a lot of people ask, how do partners start to work with us? And these days we rely entirely on word of mouth. Usually our partner organizations come to us, if we haven't worked with them before, through a partner we have worked with. So maybe the public library has worked with us, and then the historic society in town is like, well, I have some scrapbooks that I want scanned. And they'll talk to the public library, and the library will say, oh, you should contact Digital NC, because they worked with us and they could help you. This is what they do. And so then they email us and we chat and figure out if we can work on what they have. And then once we decide, yep, you would make a great partner, which is usually what it is. It's very rare that we have to say no to someone, as long as they're an organization. We do not scan things for private individuals. We set up a time for them to come to our nifty voting dock where they drop materials off. We come out with our little red carts, which if you know anything about UNC Chapel Hill, Carolina blue is the color there. And so we have bright red carts to differentiate our stuff from the collections in Wilson Library. They drop everything off, and then our staff takes it into the library, and over the course of 2 to 3 months, we use assorted, these are just 2 of our many scanners we have on site to scan things. We scan it, and then our staff works hard to add metadata, so description to the material, so it's findable online. And we do quality checks, and then we upload it onto our website at digitalnc.org. And then once it's uploaded, we email our partners, send them a link, say this is what it looks like. They give us feedback on if we need to make any edits or changes. And then once everyone's happy, we set up a time for the partner to come back and get their materials. So it's all, we are fully non-collecting. Materials come in, we scan it, we describe it, put it online, and then they go back to the partner institution. And then that process repeats. So once a partner starts working with us, they can keep working with us for as long as they want. So some partners, every 3 to 6 months, we are doing new batches from them. Some partners work with us once. We do maybe a run of yearbooks, and then that's all they have for us to work on, and that's fine. Or that's all they have at the time, and then 3 years later, they get in contact and they say, we found this newspaper, can you work on it? So we're very flexible. That's kind of a major thing that we try to emphasize is our flexibility. So that website that I talked about that we upload things onto, digitalnc.org, this is what it looks like when you go to our homepage. We kind of have 2 major buckets of materials that we work with, collections and newspapers. And so we try to make it pretty easy to dive into both. They do not talk to each other. So if you're looking for something and you type it into collections, but you're really looking for something in a newspaper about it, it will not pull up. And I'll talk about that a little more, but they do kind of live in 2 separate systems. But this is our homepage. And as I talked about, we really make a big deal kind of about all 100 counties on our site and all our contributors across the site. And so every county, and when you're doing research in North Carolina, the county can sometimes be really important to think about. So every county on our site has its own page that shows all related available materials from that county. You can see here, you can just do a collection of materials from that county and do a search of just the newspapers from the county. And then we also talk about the contributors we have on our site from the county. So in Edgecombe, we've worked with the community college and the public library, any blog posts we've written about it, etc. And then we have a very similar type page for every partner institution. So this is the county library there in Edgecombe, and you can kind of see what that looks like. We link to the library's website itself on the page, any exhibits we've kind of pulled together with that involve stuff from them, etc. So that allows folks who really are looking for really place-based things or really specific content from an institution, they can drill down to that really easily on our site. But back to our homepage. So we have 2 kind of big blocks of things, our collections and our newspapers. So first, we're going to talk about that collections portion of our site. And that involves collections basically is everything that's not a newspaper on our site. So that could be yearbooks, memorabilia, which is kind of all encompassing. That includes scrapbooks, ledgers, correspondence. That can also include basketball uniforms, which we've done for a high school in North Carolina. It really just depends. Images, of course, is photographs. That also includes maps, architectural drawings, that type of material. We have city directories on our site. And then we also have a growing audiovisual component, which has a lot of oral histories, but also has some like archival video from our partners as well. Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about what it looks like when you go into our collections page. So I typed in tobacco on that front page and then pulled up this view here. And now we're gonna hop out to the website to I'm just gonna kind of show you a basic look at what it looks like if you do a search on our site. Okay, so you should be seeing now that search live, and I just wanted to do a kind of a quick demo. So we're in North Carolina. Tobacco always pulls up records in any archives. So I did a search on tobacco. And so if you scroll down here, you can see we found over 7,500 records related to tobacco. And this is searching not only the metadata, so the description, so things like this title here, but I also have it on a full text search, which we auto do a full text search. And so it will search also within materials. If I have a scrapbook, it will search within the scrapbook if it has typed materials. If there's a city directory that mentions tobacco, that's going to pull up. If a yearbook mentions tobacco, that's going to pull up. And so I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like in a minute. But you can see here, over here on if you're looking at the screen on the left-hand side, this is where all our facets are. And so you can see you can limit it by year, but you can see things, we have a wide range of things. All the different contributing institutions that have something related to tobacco that pulls up. So it's quite a long list, but you could use this to then limit. So just for example, if I clicked this, it would then limit it to only things from Braswell Memorial Library that have tobacco. I'm going to unclick that for now, but it kind of helps you move in and out of the facets. Other facets we have are what type of digital collection. So is it our yearbooks? Is it memory, which is kind of our catch-all collection? Is it in city directories? Is it images? Is it our audio-visual materials? Copyright status is also pulled up here. What location are the materials from? So you can limit that. And then also what format are you finding it in? So you can see here we have a lot of good photos that pull up initially. But I do want to show kind of how that full text, well, let me show what it looks like. If you were to click on this, what does a record look like? So this first page, that prefabricated tobacco barn. And so this pulls up here and it shows you, here's all the information about where it's from and what we know about it. And then also importantly, that contributing institution and their contact information. Because typically if someone comes to us and wants to use an item or has more questions about it, we will point them to that institution to ask those questions. We really provide that access, but we are not the ones who have a lot of in-depth knowledge about the object. All right, and then just real quickly, I want to show you how this full text search gets passed through. So if I limit it to yearbooks, and so this is still pulling up tobacco. So okay, it found the word tobacco in this Torchlight yearbook from 1955. So if I click on that, the full text search does not get passed through. And so you will still need to come to this page and then you'll notice this search within the item. And so if you put tobacco in there and hit search, now it shows, okay, we found 6 results for tobacco. And so I'll click on that and it will pull up where it found it. And so it notes that in the sophomore class report, to raise money, each member of our class gave some tobacco and the money went into the treasury. And so you can suspect what a lot of students in 1955 in Edgecombe County, where they lived, and they lived on a lot of tobacco farms. And so it's just kind of fun, but you can kind of scroll through, and I think this comes up and there's a lot of ads here at the back that mention tobacco, but that is how this full text search will work. So you often have to go to the record and then do another search for that full text. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. All right, so if we go back to our presentation, so that's kind of what our collection side looks like. And then on the other side, we also have newspapers. And so now I'll show what that content management system looks like if you do a search there. So I do a search in that main page for tobacco again, and this is what we pull up, and you'll notice there's like a million results pulling back tobacco in our newspapers. But we'll hop over to that and take a look at what that looks like. So this is our North Carolina newspapers portal. And so you can see all those red boxes. That is where that word pops up on a newspaper page. And so we'll just click on this first result. And you can see, so it has it highlighted, tobacco, again and again and again. And so our newspapers are really great, and it's really easy to do searching in them. And the OCR is not perfect, which I'll talk about, but that's just kind of a window into what that looks like when you do a search on that page. All right, so those are kind of our two main portals of content. So it's important, especially with newspaper research, particularly if you're doing name searches, the OCR, which is optical character recognition, which is what we use to take an image of text and tell the computer what it says. It's not perfect. Sometimes it looks pretty good, as you can see on the right-hand side, but sometimes it looks really bad. And we have over 4 million pages of newspapers on our site, and so it's great and very comprehensive, but we do not have time to fix all the OCR. So if you're having trouble looking for a name that you are pretty sure should be in a newspaper, you can always feel free to contact us, but you also might have to spell it a couple different ways because it might have been spelled weird in the newspaper. The OCR is reading that text weird. So just always have to be patient with newspaper research. And another thing to remember is the way we work, because our stuff has to be freely accessible, the largest newspapers in the state are not accessible on our site. So we only have things from like the Raleigh News and Observer and the Charlotte Observer, which are the two major newspapers in the state that are from pre-copyright era, so pre-1927. And so sometimes people are like frustrated we don't have that kind of content on our site, and that's why it has to be freely accessible, and they do not have any interest in making it freely accessible right now. But we have many small town papers, a lot of community papers, student newspapers from institutions all over the state, so universities, and a lot of cool kind of company papers from mill towns, factories across the state as well. So a really great resource. And so I just wanted to highlight a couple other key genealogy resources you can find on our site. We have over 12,000 yearbooks on our site from all over North Carolina, high schools and universities and colleges. And so yearbooks can be a really great resource for genealogy research. And so you can see here, I'm not going to dive back out to the website, but I have some screenshots to kind of show how you might do a name search in them. And so you can see here I have used the last name Wren, which is a common last name in the central part of the state. And I specifically am looking, I know some Wrens went to Jordan Matthews High School, which is in Chatham County in the late 60s. And so I do that search here on this portal, and you can get to this page from our main page, the North Carolina yearbooks. So I do a search, and so then it pulls up that North Carolina collections portal again. And we've done a full text search, and so it says, okay, these are the yearbooks that name. That Wren shows up in 4 yearbooks between 1965 and 1970 at Jordan Matthews. And so this is what it pulls up. And so if I click on that first one, that Fantomere from 1968. And so then I click on that record. And again, we have the situation where you have to, the actual full text doesn't get passed through. So you'd have to write the name again within that search within this item. So you'd type in Wren, hit the search, the little magnifying glass, and then it will pop up with the results. So it found 11 results. And so this just shows again how that kind of highlights that full text search. So we find Nancy Virginia Wren here, and then there's several other references to Wren in the yearbook. And so this can help you do like a name search for a person and pull them up in a yearbook. Again, the OCR is not perfect, but it's pretty good with this type of resource. And that can help you kind of drill down into what you need to see. So some other key genealogy resources, city directories can be an amazing research tool for genealogy. They have so much information, particularly from the first half of the 20th century. And so we have over 1,000 city directories from across North Carolina on our site. And so again, I'm doing a search. I'm using the same name. I'm doing a search for Wren and Siler City, which is the town that Jordan Matthews High School was in. And so you can kind of do a keyword search, and you can limit it by date, and you can limit it by location, and then hit search. And this again pulls up what we're going to find. So we found 2 city directories from that time period, from Siler City, and which the word Wren shows up. And so the view on this, our city directories are in PDF format. And so it looks different from that other, like that yearbook view. But there's a little magnifying glass there at the top, and you would just type in that name again. And then you can page through all the times it matches. So you'll notice there's a company in town called Wren and Wren Insurance Company. So that pops up. You'll also see kind of an index here. It shows where it shows up. And there was 111 matches, so I'm not going to pull them all up, but just some kind of different ways it shows up. So here's a person, East Britt, who is actually an employee. That EMP means employee. So they worked for Wren Brothers. And so that has some information here. Here's someone else with the first name Wren, who is, you can see what their house was, 635 East 5th Street. And in parentheses, that is their spouse name. And it also shows where they're employed. So anyways, city directories can be a really great genealogy resource. And I always point people to them if they kind of have an idea of where the person lives and general dates to use. And then some other key resources we have a lot of family history and genealogy files that you can do a search for if you just go into that main collections portal. We have family trees. We have kind of published family histories that people have written. Genealogy research files that sometimes like someone in that county has done a lot of research into the families in the county, and they have made that available. And so we've now put that online. So those can also be a really good resource if you have like particular areas or particular families you're looking for that are North Carolina linked. And I also wanted to just mention that we use our blog to not only announce every batch we put up, we put it up on our blog, and there's a link there to it. So we announce like, we put up 10 yearbooks from this high school in this county, thanks to this partner. And so we'll announce that. But sometimes we'll also do kind of, here's how to do research on our site about a particular topic. And sometimes it's genealogy related. Or here's how to use city directories to do this type of research. So I always recommend to people that if you're wondering about how to navigate certain things, sometimes we will have posted about it on our blog. And so we did a post about how to do military and veterans research for Veterans Day one year. And so this is just an example of that post. But our blog's always a great place to check that out and learn a little more in depth about what we have available on our site. So I always recommend that to folks. And with that, I am now happy to answer any questions that have come up or things that folks want me to talk about a little more in depth. I'm happy to go back to the website and pull that up as well and navigate through. Thank you.
That was wonderful. It's great to see all these different resources that are available to the public for free. All right, let's get through some of these questions. All right, the first one, do the partner institutions also get a digital copy back as well as the original items?
Yes, so they can get a digital copy of what we do. It's totally up to them. Most of our partners don't really have a good place to put, some of these files can be really big. And so a lot of them do not ask for copies, but those that do, we are really happy to share it. So anything we digitize, we will give them a copy of it. And we have a couple different ways we manage getting those files to them. And we also tell our partners if they have their own content management systems or whatever, they are welcome to put them up there too. Our only real limitation on sharing resources is our partners cannot then turn around and charge people for copies of those files. So they can't charge their patrons for copies of things we have scanned. They can't like market the images or anything like that. We did have a partner who used some images we did. They were like a small historical society, and they did a yearly calendar, and we were like, that's fine, no problem. That was like their one fundraiser a year. But it was like a physical calendar. So they had to put effort into printing all that out and everything. But that's the only limitation on using our resources. So we tell partners, share it far and wide, and we're happy to give copies.
Awesome. Thank you. Someone's asking, is the oldest item in collections back to 1783? Is that the oldest?
That probably is the oldest. I think that's the well, that might be the oldest thing about tobacco on the site. That's a great question. We don't have stuff that reaches back much further than that. We do have the oldest newspaper, known copies of a newspaper in North Carolina on the site. That like we scanned from microfilm. We didn't scan it from the actual physical paper. But and I think that one dates back to like 1800. But I don't think we have anything that really stretches too much into the colonial period. The State Library in North Carolina has most of those type of resources, and they have their own digital collections page.
Awesome. Thank you. Can a name search be done on the front collections page? This is a multi-step question. So there's
Yeah.
that first one.
Okay.
Do we have to put in limits, or should the name have quotation marks around it to specify?
These are great questions. I'm going to go back to our main page and start from there. So I'm going to use that Wren name again to show this off. So yes, there's an advanced search here that I suggest people utilize if they really have a specific thing they're looking for. And so you can see here, this pulls up our advanced search. And so you can search in all fields, all words, or you can do exact or phrase or any words. If you're looking for an exact name, I usually tell people to just use exact. But if you click that, you don't have to use quotation marks. It will basically, the system knows to do that. So I'm going to search Wren. And then you can see there's other ways you can limit it. I'm not going to limit it right now, but you can do that like from date to date. The one weird thing about our date thing is this is auto goes to date uploaded, and that's like, you don't want to use these date things because it's actually just looking at when we put it in the system, which is not what you're interested in. You would want to pull up year to search if you're looking for something from like 1950. You wouldn't want to use this date information down here. It is a quirk of our system that we have complained about many times. But anyways, okay, so we'll do a search for Wren. Oh, and it's going to be very difficult because I put exact. So let's do all words. We're going to hit search. Okay, so this pulls up then. So when you do this search, you'll notice that this is toggled off. So right now I'm only finding 9 resources that pull back Wren, and that's because it's only pulling back stuff that has Wren specifically written in a metadata description field that we would have filled out. So like the title says Wren, this title says Wren, a description in here likely says Wren. But if I toggle this on, it will redo the search. And now it has found over 3,000 things with Wren in it. And so that's going to pull up like the yearbooks we found earlier. This is a very common last name. And so it shows up in a lot of yearbooks. And so, yeah, it can be a little wonky. It is not very perfect, I will say that. But yeah, if you do all words or any words could also, say you had like Nancy Wren, it will look up Nancy and Wren in it. So that can be kind of tricky, but let's see what happens if I search this with it full text on. Still many Nancy Wrens are pulling up. So It is a lot of trial and error. And if you're really struggling, we really do recommend like reaching out to us and being like, I'm trying to search for this person and I'm pretty sure they should only be found in this type of stuff. Can you help? And we will be happy to walk you through that as much as possible.
Perfect. Thank you. Regarding yearbooks, what is the latest year the digital North Carolina would have?
Yeah, so for yearbooks, so for high school, we have a 50-year like privacy limiter that we kind of have self-imposed. So right now we are not doing any high school yearbooks past 1975. We have some partners who like the minute January 1st comes around, they email us and they say, all right, I got this year's, like the next year's yearbooks ready to go. So we do have high school yearbooks up to 75. But if it's a college or university yearbook or like a community college, we do those right up to present day. So we have some that go up to 2024 on our website. Because we don't have that, we kind of figure high schoolers are minors, and so they maybe don't have a ton of say of whether or not they're showing up in the yearbook and all that sort of thing. But we have no qualms about putting the college students online. So we put those up to present day. And we have a pretty comprehensive collection for college and universities. We've done all but 2 in the state, I think, have at least 1 yearbook on the site. And one of them is just because they maintain their own collection on their site. And another is a very alternative college out in the mountains that has just not made them available for assorted reasons.
Okay, thank you. Is there a way to tell if a county name has changed over the years?
Oh, that is a good question. So no, if you're on our site, you are not going to find that information. The State Library of North Carolina has really good info about the history of county names in North Carolina, and that sort of thing. But you kind of do have to come to us with that knowledge. Or, I mean, we can help you if you're like struggling to figure that out. You know, we personally know how to do that research, but nothing on our site talks about the changing county names. But we also don't really have like specific county government type records, government records. We don't really have a lot of that on our site because again, the institutions we're working with are usually smaller institutions, and they're not going to have those type of official records necessarily. The State Library of North Carolina is where you're going to find like more official county and government documents. So birth certificates, marriage certificates, that sort of info is either going to be on their site or with the local register of deeds for the counties.
Awesome, thank you. I did put in the chat the Newberry Library County Boundary Map project,
Oh,
so
yes, cool.
people can go to that too. Oh, someone's asking about a specific county. Do you have any manuscript collections for Caswell County?
We just put up about 40 resources related to family history research for Caswell, actually. Like last week, I wrote a blog post about it. So we do have a little bit. Caswell County Public Library has a really good genealogy, local history collection. And so we scanned some family histories from that collection. So yeah, we do have some stuff.
If you're an individual and you have a collection that you think would be of interest to others, do you go to your county library or other organization to ask that they submit it?
So that person has found the loophole. Yes, so if you have a collection that you think would be really useful to a wider audience, you would have to basically go through the partner institution from your area and work something out. So, you know, it might be that you also make a plan to donate that collection when you pass or whenever to them, or you might say, I physically want to keep the collection, but I would be totally fine if this is showing up under your library as a resource. And we can make notes about that sort of thing. But we would talk carefully through that. We do want to, for the most part, ensure that if a person wanted to go physically look at the item, we could point them to where they could go do that.
I think you kind of answered this, but are there collections that contain colonial records mentioning enslavement of Native Americans?
Yeah, so I cannot think, we really don't have any collections like that. We have a few, well, it's particularly of enslavement of Native Americans. I can't think of anything. We have a couple like land grant type materials on our site, and like deeds that maybe have kind of probate information on our site, but it's very few and far between, that kind of resource. The places that have those types of collections are usually are not the places that we're usually doing scanning from. So if you're looking for that kind of information, UNC Chapel Hill is like the building I'm in, that we have collections like that, but they do not exist on Digital NC. They're going to exist on the UNC Chapel Hill Library's digital collections type resources. And I can drop a link in the chat to where that would be, or the State Library of North Carolina would be the other place that would have a lot of resources like that. And a couple other like the major universities in the state. So Davidson, Duke, I think, has some collections related to that sort of content. But yeah, the heaviest, the largest chunk of our materials are covering about 1890 to like 1980. So very, very much 20th century content, and very, very local. So a lot of like community organization materials, like I said, yearbooks, school yearbooks, city directories, newspapers, heavy portion of what you're going to find on our site.
Perfect, thank you. Do you have any rural church records?
We do have some rural church records. Let's see. So church records we're not allowed to work because of the way we're funded. We don't work directly with churches as much. They're not, but we have some ways that we have worked with them. We've worked with through like a partner, like a public library, and some of them we've worked with, basically we've called them a community contributor. And they kind of have their own page. So let's see. So we have kind of assorted community contributors. And you can see here, like this First Presbyterian Church of Mount Holly is one we've worked with a lot. And we've done lots of collections for them. And so they kind of have their own little collection site for them. So there's a couple instances of things like this. We haven't worked with a ton of churches though. We've worked with this one, we've worked with a church in New Bern. So I guess also Mount Holly's kind of rural, it's near Charlotte. And then we've worked with a really old Baptist church, I think, in New Bern, which is, again, wouldn't be considered super rural. Usually the churches we're working with are ones that have been around for a really long time. And so they have some pretty old, like fairly large archival collections. But yeah, church records writ large is not a huge chunk of our site.
Do you provide high-res TIFFs as downloads in your digital platform, or does someone need to make a special request for that?
You would have to make a special request for that. We do have a lower res JP2 and JPEGs that you can download from our site. But yeah, and part of that is we want to make sure that if you're getting a high-res TIFF from us, again, we contact the partner organization and make sure it's fine, that the resource is being used in the way that it's being used. And also just to let them know that it's being used. Usually they're excited and thrilled about that. But we like to let them know, like, this is being used, because we like the partners to know how stuff is being used on our site. That's from them. So our partners get statistics about how stuff is being used on our site and all that sort of thing every month that they can pull up from us. So all those analytics and stuff like that.
Awesome. Do you have pre-Tennessee, far western North Carolina records?
Not really, no. We don't really have anything from the state of Franklin. But yeah, again, that sort of stuff would largely be State Library of North Carolina type materials. We don't have a lot of stuff from that era.
How about court records?
We do not have court records. Again, those would be considered government records, and so you'd need to work with the state library for that type of content, or like individual county.
Thank you. Do you find that large subscription database providers scrape the data images from your site?
Ooh, that is such a good question. We have had issues with bots on our newspaper pages, but we think that's largely it's a large corpus of text that's freely available. And so it's definitely AI bots that are training, which could lead to some weird places if you're looking at North Carolina newspapers from the turn of the 20th century. But I don't think I think we've had like one instance of kind of dealing with this with our yearbooks, but that was a while back. But on the whole, we don't. Some of the material you find on our newspaper site is also available on newspapers.com. And that is because newspapers.com actually digitized that material from microfilm at UNC Chapel Hill. And we wrote into the agreement that after a certain amount of time, we would get access to that same newspaper content to put it up for us on our site for free. So if you're finding stuff on our site that's also on newspapers.com, they actually had it first. And then we were able to put it up after a certain embargo period that we kind of wrote into the contract. So
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that looks like the last question that we have for today.
okay, great.
There are some great questions in there, so thank you.
Yeah.
And if anybody has a question for later, please feel free to reach out. We have our email address is, okay, Kate's got it in there already. Our email address is in the chat right now, genealogy@acpl.info. And that is also if you would like a copy of the chat. So as these links are being dropped in, we're going to end this pretty soon. So if you would like a copy of the chat, I would highly recommend shooting us an email and requesting a copy. We will gladly send that to you. All right. Well, everyone, please feel free to reach out for a copy of the chat. But thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. That was great to learn about. And I think we have some new resources that we're going to be playing with.
All
So
right,
thank
great.
you.
Thank you
And
so
thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us and hope to see you at our next virtual program. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.